You are listening to the Pencil and Paper Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Horror Ramblings Podcast, the show about all things horror. We hope you enjoy the show.
Welcome back to the Horror Ramblings Podcast, the show about, well, you guys know, all things horror. As always, Les here, and joined as always by the amazing, awesome guy who is wearing a Nightmare on Elm Street shirt today, which is fucking awesome. Oh, we've got Jason on it too. Yep. Holy shit, that is badass. Yep. It is Steven, everybody. How you doing, Steven?
I'm doing all right. I didn't think I was that awesome, but I mean, the shirt is awesome. I love the shirt. It's first time I'm actually wearing it today.
Yeah, I saw Freddy poking out from the screen, and I was like, wait a minute.
and that's kind of fitting from our last conversations.
I was gonna say, I'm a little bummed because we didn't get the chance to watch. I don't know if you've gotten the chance. They have it available on digital. The documentary about Robert Englund. People have been talking about it. They've been talking about how awesome it is, how much they've learned about him that they didn't know, and I'm sitting back and I'm going, there is more to him than Freddy, but I'm sure there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that most people probably don't know.
Yeah.
But I even saw a really funny comment from somebody. They said, I don't know about all of you, but the way that Robert Englund pronounces his Z's is ASMR. It really is. She kind of has a thing for him, though. I mean,
I think I know what she's talking about, though. Yeah, he does have kind of I don't want to call it a lisp, but something to it. Yeah, I think
it's just kind of the way he holds on to it with his pronunciations.
Yeah.
And I've seen him do, like, narration. He had a show on Travel Channel. I wish they would bring it back. It was called True Horror. It was about, like, real things in history that took place that were, like, horrific things or like based off of monsters and stuff like that. And he narrated, and I'm just thinking to myself, this guy really does have a good voice. And that's not me being biased. That is not me being biased. But he does have a good voice. Sure. I like him as the Scarecrow in the Injustice video game. He was in Call of Duty. They did a zombies map, which has my favorite George Romero line of all time. They're on the ship filming, and there's a real zombie. It's walking by, and he looks at it, and he goes, "You get back to makeup. You don't look dead enough." And it attacks him.
Nice.
So, anywho, before I ramble on about more things, as you said earlier, off camera, that's what we do here. We ramble.
We do.
Is there anything that you would like to put out there that you've seen or anything in the news? I know you've posted up a few things. It looks like the things that were posted up this past week were like some older articles, not older articles necessarily, but like about films that are out and things like that.
Yeah, I'm not 100%. I'm going to kind of go back and look just to make sure I didn't miss anything, but I don't think there was anything that really stood out as like, oh God, we got to talk about this, because I mean, there was, I know I saw some news about the Friday the 13th series, which I'm still kind of about. And that's not to say that it can't be good. I mean, Chucky is a prime example that it can work on television if you have the right network behind it, I guess, and the right people. But that's also a franchise dealing with the same person.
Speaking of Chucky, real quick, I was telling you off mic about Horror Hound. From one of the last posts I think I'd seen, Tom Holland's supposed to be there.
Oh, nice.
And he'd be really cool to meet.
Yeah.
And not Spider-Man Tom Holland, all you horror fans out there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we're talking about the creator of Chucky. Come on now.
Yeah. No, Tom Holland, he would be someone I would love to meet, because Fright Night, we have not talked about that in great detail here, which we need to.
Yes, very much
all-time
so.
favorite vampire movie, probably hands down. It's one of those I always love to watch. I've got it. I recently got it on 4K. Haven't watched it yet, which is disappointing for me because I've been waiting to get my hands on a 4K copy of it. Took me forever to find one for some reason, because I don't know if this is how, like, I don't know why it's like this, but I could never find, I'm not one of these collectors that have to have everything in steel book or some bullshit like that Doesn't matter to me. It's just as long as I get the movie, I'm fine. And this version seemed to have only been released in a steel book case. And Amazon, like the moment I was ready to buy it, all out. Couldn't find it. Gone. And I thought, well, where the hell else could I look? And then for just, if you ever cannot find it on Amazon, do yourself a favor and just waltz on over to Walmart.com, because for some reason you can always find it there just a little bit cheaper. And I sure as hell did, and I bought it, and I'm excited to eventually watch it. There was a documentary on the Blu-ray where I got to see a behind the scenes, like actually get a more current understanding, talking to the director and actors and everything, and seeing the passion from Tom Holland, just how he felt about everything, how the love that everyone's giving back. And you saw how emotional he got. I was like, good. He appreciates it. I'm excited. Thank you. You know, now I just even want to meet him even more.
Yeah. And I love stuff like that because you can tell. Sorry to interrupt. I know you were getting ready to say something.
Oh, it was just some trivia bit. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I love stories like that because you can always tell when people love the projects they're working on. You can see it in their work. And what was your trivia real quick?
Trivia is something shit that blew my mind. Did not realize a topic that we were going to kind of cover. We were talking about covering maybe, but we can do it some other time. Renfield, where that recently came on Peacock. William Ragsdale, who plays Charlie, was in that movie, and I did not recognize him.
Oh, wow.
He was a priest. I did not see it.
He's the priest with the real...
Yeah.
Holy shit.
So I have to go back and check that out, but I don't remember where I saw it, but I saw it listed or pointed out, and I was like, no shit. Like, I know I recognized him in the moment, but I couldn't, my brain didn't connect the dots. I was like, why do I know him? Yeah. So that blew my mind.
How was Renfield, by the way? I haven't gotten the chance to watch it yet. Was it good? I've heard mixed reviews. Some people said they loved it.
I think it was a fun time. I think it was just... I'm enjoying this take on these classic monsters. We've had their origins. We've had those stories. So why not do something to mix it up? You know what I'm saying? Because The Invisible Man, that was just like chef's kiss beautiful. Like how they told that story. And with this, same thing. You're positing the entire situation around an abusive relationship, and it's just like gold. It's like, yes, that works. And it works on so many levels. I thought it was a lot of fun. I liked the actors. I'll even say that I was really impressed with Nicolas Cage. It's uncanny. And I don't know if they did makeup or something, but it's uncanny. He kind of favors Bela Lugosi at times. Like if you catch him in the right light or just the right angle, I'm like, all right, I can see it. Yeah, that's pretty good.
And I know you have a love-hate thing for Nick Cage. I know. So
I do give him props where it's due, but when he's just doing crazy to be crazy, it's just like, all right, you lost me, man.
You still need to watch that movie, Mom and Dad, on Hulu. It's completely free, and it really it just works with the level. And it's to me, it's a more tame Nick Cage, but interesting concept for a movie. But yeah, I still have to watch Renfield. Hell, I still have to watch Cocaine Bear. I still have not watched Cocaine Bear.
Oh, this is on Peacock.
I know. I'm punching myself in the head because I'm like, I need to watch this stuff, and I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah. So I do have one. Now, this is a big bit of news, okay? And I want everybody to understand. At the moment of recording, this is speculation on my part, okay? So I don't have proof. I'm speculating. I could be right, could be wrong. We'll see. But we have talked in the past. I think we brought it up early on back at our Freaks episode, where Radio Silence was also doing a Universal monster flick. From everything that we know or have heard, at least from where I'm sitting, because suddenly it's become this, I don't know what kind of movie it is, Dracula's Daughter, okay? That's the one thread that I know to be true, despite whatever the hell they're calling it or not calling it or why they're dodging the question. Starring in this movie, to my understanding, is Melissa Barrera, who was in Scream 5 and 6. That might be where people would know her best from. As far as I know, she is going to be the lead, which to me would indicate Dracula's daughter, right? Now, another cast member has been added. Such an amazing cast member, and I hope to God I'm right, because he would make an amazing Dracula. Again, have no proof. They didn't say he's playing Dracula. But tell me that when you hear who I say, think of it, the threads are there. It's going to have this. Come on. Giancarlo Esposito, whom people would know best as Gus Fring from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Now, I have no proof. I'm speculating, but come on.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
I mean, come on.
Man.
I want this to be true. I want this thought in my head to be absolutely 100% factual, because if he plays Dracula, holy shit. I can't wait to see what that would look like.
I could see it. The more you're talking about it, the more I'm picturing
Think
it.
about it. Because he's already got the menace, but now you're just giving him menace with fangs. I'm in.
Yeah, I could live with that.
And you know he can kick some ass, so why not? Just give it to me, like just like that. I'm so sold on this movie already.
I love that they're doing this now instead of just telling the same stories and maybe adding just a hair to it to make it, more modernized. They're actually telling side stories and bringing it all together. Like, that's what you need to do.
And I think you've got people who are actually trying to think outside the box. Granted, I know that there have been attempts to do so, where you've had, Dracula 2000, 3000. There was that I, Frankenstein movie with Aaron Eckhart. These were not my cup of tea, but at least they were trying something. There have been numerous attempts to try to do a Wolfman picture. They're okay.
I didn't mind the Wolfman that come out a few years back.
Yeah. That
It
one
was
with
solid.
Benicio del Toro, I enjoyed it too.
Yeah, that was a solid movie. I don't
But
care what
it
anybody
doesn't
says.
it doesn't get a lot of love, which I don't understand.
You know what other movie I guess it's, you were talking about vampire movies, and we were talking about different movies that sort of get hate. There's two movies that I think are guilty pleasures of mine. I'm going to name them both right now. First one is From Dusk Till Dawn with George Clooney. That is a guilty pleasure film of mine. I don't think it gets a lot of attention. It's got practical effects. It looks awesome. I love the cast. It's a solid movie. I don't care what anybody says. It's just cheesy enough to where you have a laugh, but it's just gory enough to where you're like, holy shit.
And
so
you can't beat Clooney, man. I mean, come on.
no, and he was badass in that movie. I don't care what anybody says. And the other one, which some people disagree with me on this one, but I feel like this movie gets shit on a lot. I think it gave us one of the coolest looking werewolves I've ever seen, and that's Van Helsing with Hugh Jackman.
Okay, yeah.
I know it's not necessarily a horror movie. It's more of like an action movie. But I think it's not the best movie ever, no. But is it a bad movie? I don't think so. I think it's enjoyable.
It was trying to do, that's one of those films, trying to do something different. They instead of focusing on the monsters themselves, you focus on the protagonist, Van Helsing, and his approach. And then you kind of turn him into a different type of archetype of character. And again, I applaud that. You're trying something new, as opposed to just rehashing. We've done this before. Everybody, there's a good Dracula movie out there. There's a good Frankenstein movie out there. There's a good Wolfman movie out there. They exist. If you want to see that, go watch the ones that already exist. Now, let's do something new. Let's do something fun. Let's do something fresh. Great ideas.
Yeah. I mean, and indie films, I think, are where it seems to be at here more recently, especially with horror. It's like they're thinking outside the box. They're doing the extra steps and taking the time to tell stories that might not be told because they don't have studios down their throats.
Sure.
Which
And
kind
there
of makes
are-
me... Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, there are exceptions. I mean, let's not forget Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, but we're not going to talk about that movie right now. Anyway, continue.
I was just going to say, that's something I worry about with the film series that we're actually... I'm going to say it's a series because they're about to make their third one. And I worry a little bit. I hope that, the third one's going to have a lot more funding and everything else. I hope they don't make it too crisp and too clean. I hope it keeps its grittiness to a degree because I think that's what makes it work as well as it works. This was your idea for this episode.
It was.
I want you to present the topic today, and you kind of get into the start of it, and I'll jump in and conversate.
So, because this week I finally got to watch Terrifier 2, I thought it would be fun to talk about Terrifier in general. Now, granted, it's not a long-running franchise, even though by technicality it would probably the character of Art the Clown has at least been around for almost 10 years now. Because I think All Hallows Eve came out in 2013.
So I was actually real quick going to tell you, I was doing some research, and there is a movie called The Ninth Circle. It's only 11 minutes. It came out in 2008.
Oh, okay.
Art the Clown has an appearance in that movie, and apparently, from my understanding, from what I was reading, because I don't remember seeing The Ninth Circle. I don't remember seeing that on its own. But apparently, it is in All Hallows Eve. Like, they actually play the whole movie in All Hallows Eve, which makes sense because All Hallows Eve follows some kids after they're done trick-or-treating. They're with their babysitter, and she puts in a tape that she finds.
Okay.
And all this weird stuff starts to happen on the videotape.
All right.
So I think technically we could say Art's been around since 2008.
And that would be fair. Okay, so that's... I do believe that I had read about the Ninth Circle, but maybe in passing, when I was kind of looking into these movies, that does sound familiar. But
could be because I looked past it too, so...
Yeah. So, okay, so at least 10 to 15 years, somewhere in that ballpark area, that's fine. And to my understanding, Damien Leone, or Leone, is it Leone or Leone?
I think it's Leone, I believe.
Leone. Okay, well, if we're saying it wrong, sorry, don't have extra E's on your name or whatever. But anyway, Damien
Nice guy when you meet him, though, I will say that.
I know.
I know.
I'm just messing with him. But he is the guy behind Art the Clown, this whole idea, this whole concept, even with All Hallows Eve, which I have not seen. I will admit that. I honestly, now I was going to tell you this off mic, and I thought I'd save it. So when this movie, when it first started to surface, All Hallows Eve, you'd see it on maybe Tubi or maybe on Amazon as you're kind of thumbing through. I would see it, and I'd see the face of the clown just kind of looking up, and I thought, okay, whatever. And I just kind of keep moving. Then eventually Terrifier also came on, had a very similar look, and I didn't know that they were initially connected. I thought maybe I kept seeing the same thing, and I was like, why does that look familiar? And I thought maybe they were just ripping each other off. It's like, oh, another killer clown movie, because we had that run of killer clowns or, scary clowns and shit at one time. So it was like, oh, that's same old shit. So someone's just ripping somebody else off. And I dismissed both of them. Yeah. And eventually, I'm almost positive it was you who pointed me to Terrifier and was like, no, dude, check this out.
I think so. Like, okay. I think we talked about
because
it.
I had not really given it a shot. And then, of course, the sequel was suddenly coming up, and then everyone was talking about it. It's like, oh my God, this is going to be the greatest thing ever. And I was
doing amazing in the box office.
So it caught me off guard because I had dismissed it. And that's on me for just dismissing this immediately because I didn't know anything about it. I had been I guess it was off in a corner that I did not pay attention to. And then, of course, you talked me into checking it out. So I finally did. And I was like, all right. So I still would like to go back and check out All Hallows Eve just for the sake of it all.
Just so you know, because it is on Tubi still.
Yeah, I know that it's been on one of those. I just hadn't, like everything else, I just hadn't got around to it.
I get it.
And I do recall there's a different actor playing him in those movies, correct? In All Hallows Eve?
So I believe it's the same guy, but there is a part in All Hallows Eve where there's just like a normal clown who looks like Art, okay. And it's a different performer, I believe. I think the same guy's been playing him since the beginning, but I think what it was they're like because it's almost like found footage. Part of it is when they're watching the VHS tape, and there's an Art the Clown, but I believe it's the same actor who's the real Art the Clown. If I
wasn't sure. Now I would probably have to look it up just to be sure, but I wasn't 100% sure because I'd seen stills from All Hallows Eve, and he looked a little, and I don't mean this in any bad way. I guess he just looks bigger. You know what I mean?
Hang on, let me see here, because I think you're
right.
He
looks thicker. You know what I mean?
He doesn't have a different guy that played Art, but maybe I just didn't quite pick up on it at first. But yeah, you are correct. There was a different gentleman that played Art.
He looks bigger, does he not?
A little bit.
Like he's just got a little bit more muscle to him, a little bit more thickness to him.
A little more meaty.
Yeah. Whereas David Howard Thornton, he's ganglier. And I guess even as they put the makeup on him, they're not doing a whole hell of a lot. It's not like Doug Jones doing some prosthetics and anything. Nothing that, but it's the lankiness of it all.
You know who he reminds me of when you meet him? when you meet him, he almost puts you in the mind of Jim Carrey in the way that he moves, in the way that he acts. He's like the Mask. He's like the Mask version from the movie The Mask, but from hell.
And that makes sense.
You know, and he is a dangly guy. He's thin and he's not super tall. But yeah, he puts me in the mind of Jim Carrey.
And I think that works to his advantage, because I think I'm trying not to bounce all over the place, but I don't guess it's going to be just kind of hit it. I think he is what makes the character work. Okay. Yes. He just has a personality about him, like he understands exactly what Damien Leone is looking to do, and he just takes that and elevates it to another level, because for me, he is the reason to watch these movies.
Oh, definitely.
I'm trying to say this stuff. I want people to understand. If you are a diehard, like Terrifier 1 and 2 are your jam, and it's like, oh my God, these are the greatest movies ever, good for you, okay? Good for you. I am not 100% sure they are for me. And it really comes down to the first one. The first one works because it's simplistic. Killer clown, guy's just kind of fucking with people. He's a little out of his, off his nut, and he does some weird shit. They off him at the end, done. That works. And it's, 80, 90 minutes at
Something
most?
Like that.
Easy, breezy, done. And he sells it. And you get all of the gore that you could ever ask for. 2 is a slog. I had a hard time keeping engaged with 2. I understand that they were trying to do things and try to expand upon, I guess, the mythology of art, but even that kind of falls short, because I don't quite understand how you could have a mythology for a character that was never supernatural in the first place, unless he was, and I just missed it. You see what I'm saying? There was just so much extra to it that by the end of it, I was just like, come on. Like, you could have just cut so much stuff. And it really, again, art was the reason I was hanging on, because I find him entertaining. That movie was a hard watch, because at some points it was just like, I don't know why we're still here. I don't know what we're doing.
Now, I will say this. If you go back and you watch All Hallows Eve, I think that will change your perception of the character, because they do sort of introduce the fact that he might not just be human. Like there is, it almost makes him, the best way I can describe at least what I think art is, he's almost like Sam from Trick or Treat. He's like a vengeful spirit of Halloween, but obviously he does come around normally just around Halloween in the films, but that's what I kind of gathered from it. He does have a physical body, but there's much more to him. And I think All Hallows Eve kind of pulls that in. I enjoyed the second film because of art. I do think it gets a little mucky in certain areas, because I feel like they were trying to just put some story in where they were trying, like you said, to add to the myth of him. But I feel like they could have managed a little bit better with certain aspects of telling the story. It's not the hardest thing I've ever watched. I really enjoyed the second one, but I'm one of those people that I'll watch any movie to see a creative killer do things. Yeah. And I wanted to touch on you talking about David Howard Thornton real quick. I just wanted to touch on that. I honestly think that Art the Clown has become a horror icon. There are characters that are iconic, but then there's icons.
And I wanna just throw this out here real quick, because I made a note of this. I'm going to say that's an absolute fact now, because apparently he was in a TV show on Peacock called Bupkis. That, what do you call it? Pete Davidson show. He was Art the Clown was in an episode, and when I saw that, I was like, wait, what? So that's the pop star, rock star thing that Freddie did. There you go. He sealed the deal.
I was going to make a comparison to that. Slashers from the 80s that we see as icons today. It doesn't matter if people have never seen the movie that they're in. If you showed somebody a picture of Freddy Krueger, you would see the gears in their head turning. Even if they've never seen those movies, they recognize Freddy. They recognize Jason. They even recognize, Leatherface, Ghostface, characters like that. To me, that's what makes them iconic. Even if you've never seen that movie, you still recognize that character. And Art the Clown, he is right there. People recognize him, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that the second film made it into theaters, and a lot of people going to the theater were not expecting to see what they saw, and it was all over the news. But you don't get that without David Howard Thornton. You don't. And I'll say this, the director, the writer, met him. He's a wonderful guy. I will give him props all day because he does the makeup for the film. He works on all the special effects. This guy does everything. The relationship that those two have, the way that they work together, has made this character iconic. And the best way I can say it is David Howard Thornton is to Art the Clown what Robert Englund is to Freddy Krueger.
Certainly.
There's just this synonymous relationship with them. And the thing that gets me about it every time I watch the movies, Art is doing all of that without talking at all. The expressions, everything. The convention we went to, we were waiting in line to get his autograph. He was in full Art the Clown makeup, coming back from photo ops to get out of the makeup and then come sign autographs. He walked through the convention floor, complete Art style. He was blowing kisses to everybody. He was beeping his horn. I can't see somebody else bringing that same energy into it.
Right.
And I agree with you. I think that if it would have been a different performance, I don't think the films would have hit quite the way that they did.
He brings such, I don't know, it's like you can see the joy he has in playing this character, and that comes through. And anything that we've said before about these films, like you were even saying about Tom Holland earlier, you can tell when the passion is there. And he is passionate about this character, playing this character, bringing him to life and whatever. And just the actions, like you said, he doesn't say a word, but everything he says, the facial features, the looks, the glares, the smiles, it pays off in spades. He doesn't have to say a word, and he's selling it 100%. And that's beautiful.
And that's where I also made the comparison to Jim Carrey, his movements.
Yeah.
The way that he dances around, and the scene I always come back to is where in the second movie, where he's torturing the girl in her bedroom, and he runs out of the room, and he comes back, and he's got a handful of salt. Well, he's got the salt thing with him, and he's like a kid who's like happy to be playing with something. And the excitement he has when he's making it rain salt and he's rubbing it in her wounds, and all of his expressions, his smile, everything. You're sitting there and you don't know whether to laugh or just be in pure shock, because you legitimately feel like this character, I mean, it's the truth. He loves what he does to these people. He loves the pain he inflicts. It's all a big game to him. And to me, that really sells the character. That really makes the character... Again, I'll make a comparison to Freddy. Not a redeemable character in that regard.
Yeah.
You get a kick out of how much they enjoy doing what they do, but they're terrible.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
And the fact that he does that with the makeup on and everything, he wears a prosthetic and everything. The fact that he does all that and still gets the expression out, I give him props for that all day.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because when you can animate a character like that, it really shows the audience like something unique. And man, the only other scene I want to talk about just real quick, going back to the first movie, I love when he has finally had enough and he has the handgun and he shoots her, because he gets this just straight look on his face and shoots her. And between that scene and the scene where the girl sits down to take a selfie with him, he goes from smiles to looking like he's about to pounce on someone. And to see a character shift like that, I've seen it done in movies before. Just something about the way he does it.
Yeah.
It gave me goosebumps. I'm not going to lie. The first time I saw that scene, I was like, holy moly. And, I know I've talked about the second movie with you, and I sort of compared it to it was like an 80s cartoon to me that come to life. Even the sword, like it was like He-Man, Masters of the Universe. Like I got that kind of vibe from it.
Okay.
And I think that's like when I sat back and I watched it from that viewpoint, that it was like almost like an 80s Saturday morning like movie that you'd watch, but it's rated R. I had a lot of fun with it. So
maybe that's what I need to do. because I didn't get that vibe. And I will admit I was kind of watching it in chunks because I know my wife is not going to watch Art the Clown ever, because she has this thing about clowns. And it's funny too, because she kind of came into the room and she's like, "What are you watching?" And I was like, "Terrifier." And she's like, "What is that?" And I was like, "It's about this clown." And she saw him. She's like, "Nope." But then she comes back. She's like, "So what's happening?" And I was like, "You're not going to watch this." And then, but she gets into it, but she doesn't want to watch it, but she does. And it's like, I don't know what to do. So I was trying to keep it from her, but she continued to come into the room and be like, "Well, what's going on now?" And then next thing you know, she's like, "Just tell me when it's over." It's like, "Just leave. What are you doing in here?" So I would watch it in spurts. So maybe that had something to do with it.
I think, honestly, if you get the chance, watch All Hallows Eve.
You need to do that.
Maybe not do this like all in one sitting, obviously, but watch All Hallows Eve. Go back to Terrifier 1. Give it a quick watch. Because it's not a very long movie, and it's a good movie. And then go back to Terrifier 2, because I can honestly tell you, if you watch all three of them, I feel like it gives you a better understanding of what direction they are going with Art. And I think it really helps add to the mythos behind him, because the art that we see, that's just his shell. There is something more there. He's like a really gritty Pennywise almost.
Yeah.
There is a bigger picture to him as a character. And just a side note, you can blame my family for your wife's fear of clowns.
Yeah, I do remember hearing that.
Yeah, growing up in middle school and high school, when she would come over to the house, we'd all hang out in the one room, and our front room had tons of clowns. There's still clowns hanging from the ceiling in our house. And yeah, she just would not do it.
Okay.
So that's my bad.
But I mean, I think it's just something she eventually gets over at some point. And yeah, I do want to kind of try to understand it, because I did make a comparison here, and it was just really weird because I had not thought about it in a long time. And then I saw what was going on here. I was like, that's kind of interesting that there's this comparison. Now, granted, no one knows what the fuck I'm talking about as far as my stories, but when I was a kid, say ballpark about 12, 13, somewhere in that range is where we're going to go, I wrote a very shitty story. And I say shitty because I was not a writer at the time. I was just a kid with ideas, and I'd write stuff down and be like, that sounds good. I actually took the story writing classes of all the bad B movies that you see where nothing makes sense. I've gone back and looked at these stories going, I don't understand what's going on. But at the time, it made sense to me. So I wrote a story based on a character that a friend of mine had kind of created about a guy who becomes a clown, and he kills the parents of abusive parents of abused children. Like, he would target them. He would find out who they are. They'd come to the circus, and he'd track them down and he'd kill them. And I thought, that's kind of an interesting take on it. So he's kind of a hero, but he's still a villain, and you kind of play with that. Now, at the end of that story, he lost his head. Head got cut off. Now, granted, that didn't happen to Art in part 1. It did happen to him in part 2. And in part 2 of my story, he became supernatural. For no other reason than it's like, well, fuck it, I gotta revive him, right? He's the bad guy. We gotta make him come back. So some hocus pocus magic, whatever, and now suddenly the guy's got his head and he's popping it back on, and he's back to killing. Except this time it's going, much larger. And I wrote so many drafts of stories going up to about 5, 6, 7 parts of ideas for this killer clown. Obviously, I never got that far. I think I got maybe to 3, and that's about where I stopped. And it just kind of made me think, that's kind of interesting. I kind of had similar ideas as to what he's doing, but I'm not quite following what he's doing, but it doesn't matter because my shit didn't make sense either. Or at least looking back on it now. So I do want to understand it. I would like to appreciate it because, again, I love art. I really, really do. And I feel like maybe I am missing something. If I could just dig a little deeper into Damien's head, maybe I could understand it a little bit more. Because even the ending, the after-credit scene, or mid-credit scene, I guess. Yeah, it was mid-credits because there were still credits afterwards, of Terrifier 2. Because the credits started rolling, I was like, how does this movie still have 8 minutes? Are there 8 minutes of credits? And then suddenly the end, or the mid-credit scene pops up, and I was like, oh. And then we go back to Victoria, who was the survivor of part 1, Spoilers for all this shit if you've not seen them. Hopefully to God you're aware of that already. And that was an interesting take because they kind of left that mystery dangling in part 1, which I appreciated, that you didn't realize that was her on the television, had no face and all that. And then when you actually got to see her, it was like, oh shit, what did he do to her? And it was just really terrifying. So now we get to see where she's at now. And she has now been suddenly possessed by him or birthed his new body. I don't know. It was kind of vague. So I'm curious to see what that entails because that's a huge question mark for me. But I'm intrigued by it because kind of like you said, there might be elements that I'm not understanding. So did what he did to her, cutting her face off or whatever, just her interactions with him, did that cause some sort of connection to where this is happening now? Or is there more to it? I don't know. But I'm intrigued by it. I just need something a little bit tighter in the edit. Yeah,
to me it was, as soon as the first film ended, I wondered why she was still alive. Because I was like, did she just get lucky? Doesn't seem like Art would be... Because I kind of picked up on supernatural vibes even in the first film, because I was like, well, if it's just a guy in a clown costume, I feel like he would have already been dealt with. I mean, every horror film you watch, they do, the villain does have, ungodly strength and durability and everything. But something about Art, and maybe it's because I watched All Hallows Eve. Maybe that's what it is. But I went in with the feeling that this villain had some supernatural elements to him. And then when you see the ending of Terrifier 2, the mid-credit scene and everything, I'm like, what if Art knew that he was probably going to get kaputzed? What if he was trying to bring this girl out? What if this girl was his, final girl? And there's a bigger picture. And Art needs to basically go kaputz so that he can be reborn and go about whatever his plan is that he has. Okay. I don't know how accurate that all is going to be. But I don't know. It's just something about the All Hallows Eve thing. I watched All Hallows Eve on just a random night. Terrifier had already come out, and I was excited for Terrifier, but I saw All Hallows Eve, and it was free to watch. So I watched it when it was free. And I'm one of those people, I like my villains to be either... I'm kind of on the fence. I like them to have a tragic story to where they are, somebody that I can feel a little bad for, like Jason's situation. Like, I feel for Jason. Or I like for them to just be batshit crazy. Yeah. And after watching All Hallows Eve, I realized that Art the Clown is a agent of chaos. That's really what he is. And it's like he solely exists to pick people out. And to me, I feel like he's, gathering people for some kind of dark carnival that he has. I don't know how true that all is. If they need a ringmaster, we've got one for him. Mm-hmm. Spoilers. Oh, but I think the third film will really tie everything up nicely. I think it will answer some questions that maybe weren't answered in the second film. But I honestly hope that it leaves us on a cliffhanger just a little bit. Not like a major thing, but I hope it kind of opens the realm to even more possibility, because I think Art the Clown could be one of those slashers that could get multiple movies.
Yeah. And I'm hoping for that as well, simply because, as I said, 2 left me with a lot of questions. I was confused. I just felt like it dragged. And I think that's where a lot of it came from, like some of my where I was getting impatient with it, where it just felt like it was dragging on, is because I didn't know what was going on. And I think that probably added to my frustrations with it, saying, I don't know what is happening. I don't know why any of this is happening. You're not explaining anything, and you're making me sit here even longer with no answers. So it's just making me angry. So if I can understand it with a different perspective, maybe I can look at part 2 with a different lens and be like, oh, okay, now I understand. Now I'm with it. Now it's a breezier, much more enjoyable film. Because, say for example, here's a great example of something that was not explained one damn bit in that movie, was his sidekick. This little girl looks just like him, shows up out of nowhere. And I thought at first she was just in his head. But then other people can start seeing her too. And I was like, so who is this? Never explain it.
Yeah, I think didn't they loosely like mention a little girl went missing like years ago or something?
Now there was that. So I kind of started pulling on that thread. I was like, okay, so maybe that's who she is, but it was never gone into great details. Like, okay, so because that could explain a lot. So if he killed her in that warehouse or wherever the circus was, wherever they found him and tracked him down. So if he killed her and then whatever his killing her does, then in turn turned her into this ghastly vision or like a child version of him, then that could also explain what happened to Victoria. How she is now connected to him because she was somebody who he had a run-in with, she survived, and then it's kind of like he's infected her or something like that. I don't know. But yes, to your point, yeah, they did mention it. Now that I remember that, I do remember that, making that connection, saying, yeah, so maybe that's the little girl. But again, they never thoroughly explained what that connection may have been and why she is now looking like him, being kind of a sidekick, because I don't really know what else to call her, another agent of chaos, his little art wannabe art. Is there a female version of art? I can't think of another word or name that would be. Artist sounds stupid. That just sounds dumb. I'm not going to say that. But no, I want a little explanation, and I kind of hope for that. And she was one of those question marks I had. The mother, that was another character that was it me, or did she kind of flip at one point where she seemed like she was defending the son, and then suddenly the daughter and the mother swap places because the daughter was thinking the son or her brother was a little off his rocker. And then at some point in the movie, they flipped. And I was like, wait a minute. So why is she now on his side? And now the mom is like, oh my God, you're terrible. And I was like, calm the fuck down.
Now, see, I'm wondering, because in the first, well, not the first Terrifier, but in All Hallows Eve, Art does kill 2 children. Oh. I wonder if maybe the little girl that is like his sidekick might be the little girl.
And if it is, that's an element that I need to explore, because that could very well be her, because it's mentioned, it's there, but why is she there? Why did she come back? What is the connection? And understanding that would help us understand Victoria's situation, I feel.
I think they also need to, and I'm sure they're probably going to do this in the third one, the kids, their dad was the one who, he created the sword, he had a picture of Art in his notebook, he had all these things, like he was planning for something. Hopefully they explore that. What if Art is part of something much bigger? And what if the main girl in Terrifier 2, what if her dad was like some kind of hunter who hunted things like Art down?
Yeah.
I mean, not a bad idea. That would be pretty cool.
But yeah, that was another thread that they explored it a little and then just kind of left it dangling. And I was like, but how does he know all this stuff? Like, who is this guy? Who is their dad? And that's another question that needs answered. Now, again, a lot of this could definitely be a part of 3. And I'm really hoping it is, because there are a lot of answers that need to be, or a lot of questions that need to be answered.
Yeah.
And that's a big one.
I think people just, like I said, I watched it from the standpoint of knowing that Art is more of a supernatural thing. And I think a lot of that is because of All Hallows Eve, because I watched it. And I also, when I watch movies like this where I'm wondering what the answers are to some of the questions, I'm just like, there's going to be a next one, right? There's going to be another movie, right?
Please.
And like when I watch films from that standpoint, instead of getting like frustrated, which in all honesty, I have my moments where I do get frustrated with movies. But again, watching it to see what Art would do next, that was how I went into this movie. Like, let's see what kind of trouble Art's going to cause. Mm-hmm. He starts causing all of his trouble, and I'm having a good time watching him cause carnage. And the credits roll and everything, and I'm just sitting there and I go, man, the third one's going to have a lot to tell us about all of this. But I think from that standpoint, that helps me when I'm watching movies like this. Plus, I'm going to say this much. I don't know who's in charge of casting, but all the main chicks in these movies, magnifique. Just going to say. Just going to say. I will agree. At the end of the day, I'm a guy. If I'm going to watch some chick fight a monster, I hope she's at least kind of attractive.
Blood, boobies, and beasts. That's the mutant way, baby.
You know, plus they all seem to have like this this gothic type look to them, and every guy secretly likes goth girls to some degree. Just gonna say that. Just gonna say that.
No, I'm with you. I get what you're saying. I do want to touch on one other thing that is huge with these movies, I think, and I think it's worth exploring for just one reason, and I don't have a problem with it, but I just want to talk about it. It's the gore factor of these films. Never have I ever seen Jason, Freddy, Michael, Leatherface go to town on someone like Art does. Art takes it to another level, okay? Yes. To the point where we've seen Jason do some horrible shit, but it's almost like to get the job done as fast as possible. He's not in it to torture or anything. It's like, what can I do in this moment to kill someone that's convenient? If I can knock their head off with a punch, I'll do that. If I can bend their spine backwards because they just happen to be in my way, I'm going to do that. It's just whatever's convenient in the moment. Art, on the other hand, takes his time and just elevates everything that he does. Like they're dead and he's not done. It's like, dude, stop. They're dead. He's like, nah, I got just a little bit more time. Just hang on.
It's art from art.
Exactly. That is what he's trying to do. He's taking it to another level. And I don't think I ever felt like this in any of the kills except for one, and that was the bedroom kill that you mentioned. At some point I was like, God damn, dude, how much more do you need to do? You have done enough, and you continue on. Stop. She's dead. She has suffered enough. Please, for the love of God, just stop. Like, for me, that was where I felt like he just took it a step too far. Every other thing, yeah, he went a little extreme, but I was like, all right, well, got it. But that one was just like, shit.
And see, that's the thing I think that makes these films as successful as they are. Like, you're sitting there and you know it's a movie. Like, you know it. But like you just said, you're sitting there going, for the love of God, they're dead. Stop. Like, you're shocked by it, you know? And even the scene after that, when the kids come to trick or treat and he gives them the candy that's in her severed head and they think it's just a prop. I'm like, holy fuck. Like, even, again, I'm bringing him up. Even Freddy tortures. Nothing like that, though. He toys with his victims. He loves it. But when he delivers the killing blow, he delivers it. You know, another scene that I found just... And I say this, and I mean this in a good way. Another scene, though, that I find just totally like, what the hell? Is when he kills the kid's mom. And he comes home, and her open face is there, and he's shoving food into the hole. Like, come on. I'm like... I'm sitting there watching this, and I'm like, Art, you are truly a monster, man.
That is like psychological scarring on a
it's
whole other level.
But again, that's what I love about the character. He takes joy in what he does. To tell you the truth, I don't think he honestly thinks what he does is bad.
You might be right, just based on the look on his face.
Yeah, I think he enjoys it. And when I'm terrible with names, but when the main girl falls asleep and she's having the dream about Art, and the little boy's eating the cereal, and he starts like spitting up blood and stuff. That, to me, like I thought back to like the infomercials that used to be on like in the 90s at like 2 a.m, and I thought like this is like one of those infomercials gone wrong, but it like took me back, and it really just it gave me a mind fuck moment. I was like, oh my god. But you know the gore in this film, that's something. I know you talking about that just made me think of this. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. One of the problems with a lot of big horror movies, and I hope that with them getting a bigger budget, they don't do this. They make it look too crisp, too clean. They try to make it look too real. And when they make it look too real, as weird as it sounds, it ends up looking kind of fake. And it takes away from it. Terrifier 1 was gritty. Terrifier 2, yes, the camera, and you know, all the shots were a lot more crisp, but there was still this grittiness to it. Yeah. And when you would see the deaths and everything, they really make it gritty. They make it kind of dark, and it just, something about it makes you feel uncomfortable. I'm big on getting the right angles and the lighting being a certain way to make things look uncomfortable to the eye. Just because the scene is uncomfortable doesn't mean that you have to make it super bright and colorful, you know.
Right.
Make it gritty. Make my eyes strain a little bit. Make me feel uncomfortable with what I'm looking at. And I can guarantee you that I will be more invested in what I'm watching. And I think Terrifier has been great at that. And, you know, clearly, you know, the scene in the costume shop when he kills the costume shop owner and he's bashing his head in. Obviously, you watch that a few times. You know it's a fake head, but it's still uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah.
But, you know, they do that scene, and then we do the bedroom scene, and you can tell that's where they put in a lot of budget for special effects and everything, but it's still a very gritty scene, and it's very uncomfortable.
Wasn't that not yeah, that was the scene after all that torture. They cut away when he was stabbing her. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah.
Because you did all this, and then when he's just finally going in for the last few slices, you just hear slink, slink, and you just see blood splatter. I'm like, cut away now? Too late. I mean, goddamn. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, like it's the perfect timing for the movie. Like,
yeah.
I think, honestly, the director strikes me as a guy who's sat and watched a lot of horror movies.
Sure.
And I'm sure he's reached a point where he's watched some horror movies and he's gone, you know, that was okay, but I think I could do better. And I think he started toying with doing these films. And that's the one thing I will say, from All Hallows Eve all the way up to Terrifier 2, he's been consistent in his style and everything else. You know, the way art acts and everything else, it's consistent, and it's consistent in a very good way. So I'll give him props. I'd love to have him come on the show. I'd love to have David come on the show too.
Sure.
I met them at the convention. I've talked to them both about, you know, our show, and I know they're very busy guys, but it would be cool to have them come on and just talk about it, because I mean, honestly, they definitely know what they're doing when it comes to this stuff. And David's just from what I've seen, he's just a good actor. Yeah. And I know he played the Grinch. I can't really call him the Grinch, but in that movie, The Mean One, the movie wasn't very good, but from what I could tell from his performance, he committed. And that's all that you can do. Yeah, you know, commit to what you do. But when it comes to characters, just Art the Clown. That's all I can say. He's just so damn entertaining.
See, I could probably compare Damien with Don Mancini in the sense that I don't see him allowing anyone else to play with Art the Clown. And not to say that he wouldn't trust that other people could handle it. I think he is protective of that character. I could see him being that way, because I understand it from that side alone. If someone came up to me and said, hey, I want to buy this character you created for X amount of millions of dollars, and it's like, okay, so you're going to take the character and I'll never see it again? Yes, absolutely not. Because I created that character. I know what that character needs to be, and you're going to ruin it. That's my mindset. I'm not saying that he would think that way too, but I think very much in the same way Don Mancini takes care of Chucky and wants to do things with Chucky, but doesn't want to hand it off, even though that I know there's a reboot he had fuck all to do with. Clearly you see what the studios are going to do without him. I think it would be the same thing here. He would like to just maintain all control for any other Terrifier movies going forward. Anything where that character is involved, he's going to be involved too. He's not going to allow it to wind up in the studio system where they're just like, hey, let's just make whatever and put the clown in there. He'll kill people, yeah. And then next thing you know, we've got a PG-13 Terrifier movie, and it's like, what the hell? Yeah, you see what
I could see him, like, in the event, let's say he started to work on other projects and maybe they wanted to do some kind of spin-off. Maybe they introduce more characters into the Terrifier universe and they decide that they want to do some spin-offs. I could see him maybe even pulling, like, a Sam Raimi with Evil Dead. Sam Raimi might not write and direct every Evil Dead movie, but he does always seem to play a part in it. He always seems to come on board and say, maybe not do this, guys, maybe do this. I could maybe see that as well. And, I mean, I would be okay with that. You know, you create a whole universe, and some other people who might be upcoming writers and directors want to take a stab at it. Okay, yeah, that's cool. If you want to do that, but I want to be able to see a little bit. You know, I want to be able to maybe help, maybe advise. What was that series on Netflix? The Sandman.
Yeah.
The creator of that, I know he's really involved in the show, and I know that... Go ahead.
The irony is that Hollywood didn't want him near it for decades. And it
Yeah.
took him finally going to Netflix and being like, I will help with this. And they got it made, and it's so perfect. And it just proved all that shit wrong that studios have been saying. It's like, well, if he comes on board, he's going to ruin everything. No, he didn't.
Well, not to get too far off topic, but it's the same reason for all the writers' strikes right now.
Exactly, yeah.
They get paid shit to create all this content, and the studios think that they can use, AI to create new content, and that they don't need the writers and everything else. People who come up with ideas, they know what they're talking about. It's the same thing with Star Wars. There's a lot of ideas that George Lucas has still contributed to Star Wars, and you can normally tell when he contributes ideas. It seems like the fans do tend to gravitate a little bit more toward that stuff. I'll be honest, the script that we've been sort of working on, back and forth. I used AI the other day to help me edit a little bit. Did I just copy and paste? No, I took the edits that it gave me, compared them to what I had, and there were a few things that I thought could be a little more descriptive, and sure enough, it helped me with that. But to have it write complete content for you, no way. It's a good tool.
A tool, yeah. Just like CGI is a good tool, and look how overly, what's the word I'm looking for here? Dependent. Jesus Christ. Look how overly dependent they got on CGI because it was this new tool. It's like, look at all the things we could do. It's like, yeah, but the practical stuff is good too. All you need to do is, if you combine forces, you use this to help with that. You can do a little practical, put in a little CG, and then boom, shit looks amazing. And anytime something looks amazing, I guarantee you it's a combination of both. And it elevates it to a whole other level. And there's just, like you said, there's no way AI is going to ever write something that is just going to be so marvelous where you're just like, oh my God. I honestly feel like, while we're on the subject, I don't know if I've mentioned it here. I may have mentioned it on Super Mega Crash when that was still going, was Mrs. Davis. There's another show on Peacock you need to go watch. It's about an AI that has essentially taken over everything. And it's kind of I don't want to say it's taken over everything. It's in everyone's lives. Yeah. It's almost to the point where everyone's talking to it. Everyone's just kind of reaching, like it's just everywhere. And there's one, the main character, she absolutely refuses to deal with it. She doesn't want any part of it, and then eventually gets sucked into it and has to start doing something for the AI. Now, I heard that they had used AI to help craft some of the story, the screenplays, and I didn't get details on what exactly it did, but when you watch the show and you see some of the outrageous shit that happens, that has to be where the AI came in. It tossed out some outrageous idea and was like, yep, that's where we're going. Let's go with it. And you're just like, what? No, that's insane, but it works. Yeah. And giving ideas like that, yeah, absolutely. I'm all in for it. Yeah. Work with that as kind of your template. But if it wrote the entire show, I don't think it would be near as good as it is.
Right.
At least I think it's good. That's what I'm saying. But yeah, I almost want to see it done as an experiment. Like some filmmaker finds a way to write a 90 minute script using nothing but AI and see how good it could be. Because I don't believe it. It's missing the human element. Yep. There's just something about that a computer will never understand. The emotions.
I think the best thing as a screenwriter with AI, obviously you can use it to edit things, make them, maybe a little more descriptive, things like that. It's also good if you're not sure where to go with, say, an outline for, you have a story. Let's say you want to write a story about killer gummy bears, but you don't know where to begin. You type into an AI system, give me an outline for a script about killer gummy bears. It gives you a basic outline, and you build upon it. Again, it's not writing it, it's just a tool.
Sure, yeah.
And to kind of go back to what you were saying about effects, CGI and practical effects. I know the new Flash movie come out. I don't know if you've seen it.
As of this recording, no, but I will be seeing it tomorrow.
Well, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but there is...
I've been dodging bullets, let me tell you.
there is a part where there is some CGI, and I had it spoiled for me on TikTok, this part at least. I'm not going to tell you any details. All I will say is when you look at this CGI, unless they've fixed it since then, to me, it kind of takes away from the scene a little bit because you can tell that they kind of rushed to do some of the CGI.
I will probably say I know exactly what you're talking about, even though I don't have any. I'm not 100% sure about some of the things that I've heard, but I could probably pinpoint what I think that is.
You probably could.
just based on some things that I've heard rumbling, trying to avoid spoilers. People are stupid. People say one thing and you can automatically start connecting dots. I mean, that's how my brain works. I can't help it. So as soon as I catch wind of something, I'm like, well, shit, now I know what I'm going to see here. Or that's spoiled. So we've gotten way off topic.
Well, I'm actually going to bring it back around because I'm going to bring up something else, but then I'm going to bring it back to the subject. I promise you.
Gotcha.
I want to point out something about practical effects as well, real quick, and why practical effects are so damn great. Halloween Kills. I'm just going to say this. Donald Pleasance has been dead since the 90s. They brought him back with practical effects for Halloween Kills. They found someone who looked similar to him. They added prosthetics, and they used a voice actor who sounded like Donald Pleasance for the scenes. I'm sitting there in the movie theater thinking that they were using deleted scenes from the old Halloween films because it was that damn convincing. Yeah. It's insane.
And especially in the day and age where we've seen what Disney has done to bring dead actors back to life. And say what you want about it, it's a little weird. You know, it's impressive in some ways. I mean, the fact, what was the one, I think it was Rogue One with Star Wars, where they got Peter Cushing.
Yeah.
It
Carrie
looks
Fisher,
good when he...
Young Carrie Fisher's in that too.
That's right, that's right. And I think that was actually done prior to her death, but she died when the movie released. So, I don't know, one of those things. But visually, Peter Cushing looks amazing, or at least the work, the CGI looks amazing when he doesn't talk.
Exactly.
When he begins talking, you lose me because automatically you can see that. But yeah, with Halloween Kills, blew my fucking mind, just like you.
Yep.
Didn't know what was going on. I thought they were doing the face swapping CG stuff, and like, no, this is practical. Like, bullshit. No way. Blew my mind.
And you know what? I bet it is cheaper. For them to do prosthetics and hire a voice actor than it is to do all the CGI. Yeah. And to bring it back to the topic at hand, with their bigger budget that they're going to have. This is what I hope for Terrifier 3. I hope they do create a special little mix of practical effects and CGI, because just that little bit of CGI that they could add with a bigger budget, I think it would take the film to the next level. And if they keep the practical stuff, it'll keep that grittiness that the film needs.
I can see that, yeah.
So.
Okay, I'm with you.
But, man, Terrifier.
I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I don't know if I'll go see Terrifier 3 when it comes out in theaters. I'll probably wait just like I have. I still am curious. I don't want to hear, and I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, okay? I know that other people have enjoyed 2 for what it was. Like I said, I just felt like it went on for much longer than it needed to, with no answers being answered, or no questions being answered. I don't know why I said answers being answered. Answers are answers.
No answers being questioned.
There you go. So I'm hoping for a little tighter ship with 3.
Yeah.
It's his movie, and I'll at least give him props for that, respect for that. His movie, his character, his way, and he's doing it. If that's the movie he wanted to make, and that's what he got out of it, a movie that's 2 hours and 20 minutes, fine. Good on him. That is the movie he wanted to put out, and he did. And not a lot of filmmakers can say that. So, props.
I will say this much. I think we should do maybe not a full other episode, but I think we should talk about it over one of the episodes. I think when you get to watch All Hallows Eve, we should have another conversation and see if maybe that helps you with Terrifier 2 a little bit. Because I can see where you come from with Terrifier 2, because I will admit there were some parts in it where I'm like, how long is this movie? And it wasn't that I didn't enjoy the movie. I did enjoy it. I enjoyed art. I liked all the characters, and and everything else. But I could see, you know, how frustrating it can be waiting to get answers that don't necessarily come.
Yeah.
But I always look, you know, I always turn to the glass half full approach and just go, well, they're going to give us more in part 3.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. So hopefully, maybe, and that might change my perspective. I know that, and I feel like this is fair comparison. There were some people who, great as the movie is, said Across the Spider-Verse is only half a movie, so I can't really say how good it all is based on one half. That's fair. If there's going to be more to this that helps me understand Terrifier 2 more, then when I get to 3, then I can reassess. Sometimes that's what you need. But that also, to me, feels like it's a little disingenuous to your films, because if you're banking on there being more, then the entry that you have is not necessarily a standalone feature. You know what I mean? So sometimes that can be to its detriment. So you can't necessarily say, if you, all right, here's a great example. The Mummy from 17? Has it been that long? God damn. That was a movie built on the idea that you're going to have all these other goddamn movies. So they didn't answer anything. It was a movie of setup for 2 hours that never paid off. So it's not even a movie. It's just, hey, let's watch this 2 hours of things that may or may not come to fruition, which will never come to fruition now. So it's a pointless movie. You know,
True.
You've created something that cannot stand on its own 2 legs because you were building it out of toothpicks and you set a brick on it. So
That's a good comparison. I like that.
yeah. So I don't know. But again, this is still continuing from where the last one left off. It just left a lot of lingering questions. So, and we know we're going to get a third one. So as long as he doesn't bring more questions to the table that go unanswered, then perhaps it'll all play out. I don't know. We'll see. Just my feelings on movies. They do need to kind of stand on their own 2 feet. And, you know, Marvel's done kind of a good job at teetering that line, but I know that they can also
sometimes
set
do
up
that.
set up a little bit, and we're like, well, some people don't know what the fuck you're talking about, dude. You need to keep it in this box, and then we'll get to that stuff. It's great. It's all connected. We got it, but keep it together right here, and we'll get to it.
So overall, though, I mean, you enjoyed Terrifier 2 aside from just feeling like you couldn't get into it quite as much?
And a lot of that may have been where I had to watch it in spurts. Like I wasn't actually just being able to sit down and enjoy it as one whole thing. So I was just catching glimpses here and there and then coming back to it. So that might have had a bit to do with it. But like I said, overall, I think Art the Clown is a great character. Iconic. I love watching Art. But the overall narrative, or at least for part 2, because I enjoyed part 1 for what it was. I wouldn't say it was just like, oh my God, this is groundbreaking. Again, I think it holds up because of Art. The story itself is very simplistic, and I think that works for its benefit because you're just really getting to see if this character can hold his own movie. Because having only been in the shorts, that kind of worked there, but this was kind of a test run to say, all right, can he sustain an entire movie? And I think he can. That was proof. So then he took it to the next level and said, all right, let's see if he can sustain in a bigger movie. And it's like, wind it back just a little bit. You did good, but wind it back. He's entertaining. He's the great part. He's what you come for. I think with a lot of horror movies, that's what you're there for, is the killer. And if you didn't have him, I absolutely could not recommend Terrifier 2 at all. I think he is the enjoyable part of it. I don't think any of the actors are bad. We didn't even talk about the worst damn kill in there that everybody's like, why haven't you talked about that? Is the guy's dick getting ripped off. I mean, Jesus Christ. But for some reason, that wasn't the worst. Go figure.
The bedroom scene to me is still
the worst. It's just so nonstop. That was just like stab, 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 and it was done. And it was like, okay, that does hurt as a man, but the woman got brutally skinned and just tortured, and that compared, I gotta say, losing my dick's one thing, castrated, whatever, but
I'm gonna give it to the bedroom scene all day.
But I mean, again, he's your primary reason for being there. The actors are all great. No one is phoning it in. No one is giving a bad performance. They're all well made. I need something more other than a 2-hour epic horror movie, because I have never in my life seen such a thing. Not like that. Not this type of horror movie. These usually kind of clock in around 90 minutes tops, and you're done.
And one other thing I'll say just real quick, from a directing standpoint, like if you watch this and you kind of watch how the director went about what they were doing, also a great film in that regard. I do think he's a very talented director.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'll give that to him all day. And again, I respect this was his vision. This is what he wanted to do, and he got to do it because there was no studio interference. He got funding from, smaller little indie houses and whatnot, and maybe even put up some of his own money. However it went down, he got to make the movie he wanted to. If this was under any other studio, you would not see half of the blood and carnage that you saw. And I'm honestly surprised this movie didn't get slapped with something like NC-17.
Right.
Honestly.
I agree with you there.
Yeah. So, but no, recommended, but, it's acquired taste for now for me. But art is great. Definitely.
Well, I hope you get to watch All Hallows Eve, and I can't wait for that conversation because I think that's going to be an interesting conversation.
I'll definitely put it on the list. Try to move it up there a little bit because I do need to get to it and just give it a watch. It's not
trust me. We've all got movies we got to watch.
Yeah.
But no, I really enjoy the Terrifier films. I enjoy art. He's going to become more of a household name more than he already has. I know that for sure. But man, we covered a lot.
Yeah, no, I think we did, yeah.
So I don't have anything else unless you have anything else.
No, I think we've hit all the nails on the head with this series for now. And like I said, I will check out All Hallows Eve so I can put everything into perspective. But Ramblers, how do you feel about Terrifier? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Or are you kind of somewhere in between? You can let us know on Twitter at Horror Ramblings. And if you've got a lot more to say, if you want to write us a 2-hour epic email, you can do that at horrorramblings@gmail.com. And if you want to discuss horror with like-minded individuals, you can go join our Facebook group, or you can join us in our Ramblers room on Discord. You can even find us on Instagram, where I'm getting better at putting up horror images when I remember, and it's coming to me. So just check out all the horror posters and whatnot that I can come up with, and check us out over there. If you want to support the show, you can head on over to patreon.com/Pencil and Paper Productions and, chuck in $1. And if we get more people to kind of help out there and do things, and maybe we can do some bonus material over on that thing. You can also give us a 5-star review on your favorite podcasting app. That helps us grow. People will see our show. You can leave reviews on those platforms as well. If you happen to be using Spotify, you can look and see if we've posted any questions or polls for that week. Let us know what you think. Finally, if you prefer a central hub, keep up with any and all things at pencilpaperproductions.com/horror-ramblings. Links are in the show notes for your convenience.
And remember, guys, stay spooky out there.
This has been the Horror Ramblings podcast. Join us next time for even more.
This has been a Pencil and Paper Podcast Network production.